Hello and welcome to this special session from SPE Live on diversity in the oil and gas industry, particularly breaking the glass ceiling for the many talented women in this sector. This session is brought to you by our sponsors, Chevron, SPE Foundation, and Wintershall Dea. My name is Carole Nakhle, and I'm the CEO of Crystol Energy, an advisory and research training firm in the UK, and I'm also the founder and director of Access Women in Energy. This topic that we're covering today is very close to my heart. I've been in this industry for more than 20 years, and I don't recall spending maybe a month or more without talking about the issue of diversity in the industry. Of course, things have evolved significantly since, but I'm still shocked by the numbers and the statistics I come across. Of course, they vary from one company to the other, but the numbers are still very disappointing. And here, let me share with you some data from Catalyst from 2020, so quite recent, on gender diversity in the industry, which sadly decreases with seniority. For instance, at entry-level positions, we have around 27% of women participation. 17% are at senior and executive level positions, and a shocking 1% of oil and gas CEOs are women. And the big question that continues to ask itself, and to which I haven't really found a convincing answer, is why is that? Hopefully, with my distinguished speakers today, we'll be able to find what the problem is and what we should do about it in the industry. I am delighted to welcome to this session four distinguished ladies with decades of experience in the industry. First, we have Lina Serpa, VP Well Solutions from BP, with over 28 years of experience in the company in BP in a wide range of leadership roles across 5 different continents. We are also joined by Janne Lea, Vice President, Reservoir Management, Development and Engineering at Wintershall Dea in Norway. Janne has a broad experience of management positions within the Norwegian oil and gas industry, primarily in the area of HSE. We also have Kimberly, McHugh, who is the Vice President of Wells for Chevron, responsible for all aspects of Chevron's global drilling, completion, and workover operations. And then we have Gretchen Haskins, who's a board director at Nakhle Offshore and Flight Safety Foundation. She's a leader in safety performance improvement in the aviation industry and an internationally recognized expert in human factors. Welcome you all to this session. I'm delighted to have you on board. And I would like to jump straight into the discussion, perhaps start with you, Gretchen, to ask you about your own experience with diversity, because there is no shortage of evidence out there, publications by international organizations, private sector, etc., about the importance of diversity to both the private sector and more broadly to the economy of a country. But from your own experience, can you share with us some of these benefits that diversity brings to the performance of a business, in your case, in the case of Nakhle Offshore?
Yes, I can tell you it's been my experience that diversity is really good for business, and that diversity of thinking in particular, inclusiveness, helps you to generate the innovation and ideas that really can make a business thrive. My latest experience was with a company called Nakhle Offshore. I was originally the CEO of that company, and I now serve on the board. And Nakhle Offshore is set up with a single purpose, which was that no lives be lost in offshore helicopter flight. And it's set up with an ethos of inclusiveness. So it was global, all stakeholders from across the whole supply chain, everyone that had an interest in offshore helicopter safety. And then what we really did was set up a mechanism to talk and listen to each other. especially to listen to people with slightly different ideas. So we got the pilots speaking to the designers. We got the engineers speaking with the designers. We got the front line speaking with the CEOs. And this global conversation helped us to come up with things that led to breakthroughs in safety performance. So I think it's really important that the message continues to get out there that diversity drives performance. And that's the first way of opening the door for women, for ethnic minorities, to get a seat at the table because they have so much to offer.
Thank you. Kimberly, you have been in the industry for more than 30 years, which is quite impressive, and you hold a senior position in the industry. But what are the main changes that you have seen in those 30 years plus of experience with respect to diversity? Because I understand that the oil companies, both privately owned and state-owned companies, seem to be putting more and more emphasis on diversity. However, the numbers don't really reflect a lot of progress. But does this mean that actually we started from a super low base, that the numbers actually are not too bad compared to maybe 30 or 20 years ago? So if you tell us from your own experience, how do you see diversity has evolved in the sector?
Yeah, so thanks, Carole. It has been a rough road because I am plus 30 years. And when I think back, most of the women I started in the industry with are not in the industry anymore, and a lot left very early in their career. So I do think we were starting at a very low point. So the differences, what's changed, one, I will tell you, is amongst the women themselves, because we tend to support one another today, where if you go back 30 years ago, we all thought we were fighting for one role. All of us were going into that same role. Today, it's not that way. Women are supporting women and encouraging and really mentoring. We didn't really have mentors back in those days to help. We're also talking about it, and that's a difference. Nobody ever talked about it 30 years ago. It just, you were in a room, you were trying to fit in, you were trying to show your knowledge and what you could do. And today we're talking about it and how to be intentional and making sure that everyone's getting an opportunity to show what they can do. It's still not where it needs to be by any stretch of the imagination. I think some of it is a paradigm that several people still struggle with. How can women have the same experience? How can they, be as technical or have the field experience or the breadth of experience? And that's got to change. That paradigm has to change. I mean, look at the women on the panel. We're talking 30, 20. We've all got a wide breadth and depth of experience, and we're not special. There's many out there in this next generation that's coming up. I'll also say I would have hoped that things would have changed more at the university, and I think that's where it starts. I talk to college students who will talk to me about experiences they're having, and I can't believe they're still struggling in the same conversations we struggled with 30 years ago. And people being surprised they're in engineering or being coached that you might want to do something else that may be, not as field-based or, as difficult. And I mean, I've even heard people say, women don't even aspire to some of these things because they don't want to get dirty or put in the hard work. And I would have thought in 2021, we would not see those conversations. So we still have a lot to do around the culture and understanding that it doesn't, man, woman, ethnicity, anyone who puts in the effort can be good at what we're doing and can strive. But you do have to be intentional, and you have to look out and look for those opportunities to make sure that everyone's being seen and everyone. It's all about inclusion. At the end of the day, if you don't feel included in a conversation, bringing your best self forward, you cannot participate to the full of your ability. And that's really at the core of it.
You rightly said that there is no shortage of talented and experienced women in the industry, and yet they seem to be held back from shining, especially at the top levels across various companies and in different countries. But it's interesting, I come from the Middle East, and I don't recall ever meeting a young woman saying that her dream is to pursue a career in the oil and gas industry, or meeting parents who come to me and say their dream and their aspirations for their daughters to enter the oil and gas industry. And I wonder whether today this is becoming even more difficult because of this growing perception that the oil industry is perhaps dying because of the fight for climate change. So if I can turn to Lina and then ask you, what message would you convey to young women who are studying certain degrees at universities, and they are having second thoughts about entering the oil and gas industry because they think that the industry had its heydays, is not going to grow any further because of the climate change threat, and then they would rather go to other areas? Do you think that this is the right perception, or they have to know, and we have to tell them something better?
Well, I think that there are opportunities that we have to better explain to those that are debating right now if they want to start in the oil industry. So I'm going to give a couple of examples of why a career in the oil and gas industry is very exciting and for many years to come. The first thing is, in the oil and gas industry, we solve very complex engineering problems. So anyone who is doing a technical degree, an engineering degree, a science degree, that is really interested in that problem solving, this is a very high technical industry that we probably need to communicate better, because people tend to believe that it's very mechanical and it's very manual, probably because of the videos that people see of what the oil and gas industry is. So first point is solving problems. Second one is high technology. And the third one is, if we think about the low carbon and the greener energies that we want to develop 2050 and beyond, what we will need is companies with the deep expertise of solving problems, understanding data, analyzing data, that have a global presence, that understand regulations globally, and all the oil and gas companies, both in the service sector and the operator sector, have these characteristics. I was having a conversation with a member of the board for BP, and she's a lawyer, and I'm going to repeat her answer. In the current environment of transition, where we are bringing different mixes of energy, science degree and experience in deep engineering is actually what we need to build that future and find the solution to a problem that, as an oil and gas industry, we are going to find. And I think that is probably the focus for the generations right now that are debating if the oil and gas industry is the right industry.
Actually, it's interesting when I teach at universities, and sometimes I realize for outsiders, people who don't know the industry well enough, they don't quite understand the massive technological developments that take place in oil and gas operations, including, today we talk about digitalization, but I think the industry is a great adopter of digitalization. So that could be an angle that perhaps the industry should portray better, especially to students at universities. Janne, let me go back to the very basic question to you and ask you about, there is a perception, it plays a role from people outside the industry, but there must be something from within the industry that is stopping young female talent, even after years of experience in the industry, from really achieving senior positions in the oil and gas industry. What are those barriers, and what should companies do about?
I think what we have done in Wintershall there is, of course, you need to have it as a policy in the company that you really also look for the young talents. And also, we have had a policy since we started that we really want to have gender diversity. And actually, if we see the management team of Norway, we actually have a percentage of 55% of female in the management team. So what we have seen that is, of course, the first thing is that you will always look for the best person when it comes to the competence. But what we have seen is that the to use the woman network, the network that our people that have senior position of females in our company, that they use their network and so on. We also have found good, or we have recruited good women and female candidates. And also what we see, we have visited university, talked about our industry and so on to the students. And actually what we see now is that if we see our employees below the age of 30, actually we have a 50-50 percentage of female and male. So I think in a way the talent is there. We just need to actually look for it, use our network, especially the female and the women need to use our network within the industry, and then and talk positively about it. Yes, that is what I see as the most important. But and also I think there is a personal story. When I started to join the Wintershall Dea back in 2019, I was offered a leadership position, and I actually discovered I was pregnant the day after, and I didn't want to say yes without informing that I actually was pregnant. And my boss was just looking at me, and he was asked, "But I guess you are not planning to be pregnant all the time. So what is the problem in a way?" And I think that is also maybe have been a barrier for some women to go into leadership positions. So I think it's in a way the total package what we also need to have in place to offer that it is not a barrier, even if you are a woman, to make a career, and also be clear on that as companies.
That is a very encouraging and positive story that more people should hear about. But I think, Kimberly, would you like to add something on that particular aspect, the barriers that women face in terms of career progression within the industry, and also maybe invite Lina and Gretchen to add to this aspect?
Absolutely, thanks. One of the things I think is really important, look at this panel. It's women talking about diversity, and in our oil and gas industry, that's number one. That men have to be in this conversation, because otherwise it's an initiative for women progressing women, and to have the best talent move forward. And we want people to have an opportunity to progress their career. So right off the bat, men have to be in this with us. We spent, I don't know, the first probably 25 years of my career, a bunch of women getting together in a room talking about the issues. And today we have more men in here, but we got to have more. And we really got to talk about what are the, I think the term now used is headwinds for individuals to move forward in their career. And I will say I'm one of those who, in the middle of my career, if someone had not taken the time to offer me some flexibility with how I worked. I have 3 children, and I wanted to be a mom, but I wanted to keep a career. And they were working with me on flexible schedules. And so I was in the office on Tuesday and Thursday. I worked from home Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Companies have these policies, and I get that back all the time. Well, yeah, we have the policies. The problem is not the policies. The problem is you need supervisors and leaders who will use those to help individuals progress and continue in their career and develop and show the results that they can. And I think that's get confusing in this conversation, that too many people think that as we're having this diversity conversation, it means you can have weaker results, right? You don't have to deliver at the same. No, you have to deliver. You have to be good at your job, but you also have to be given the opportunities for those roles that can showcase and are those stepping stones to the next opportunity and moving through it. And that's the intentional part, having men in the conversation, making sure there are mentors and sponsors and understanding the difference. Those are the things that we have to do, because otherwise the numbers are just not there and you kind of get lost in, oh, well, she got selected because she's a woman. I don't think any company wants to select someone on their gender and then hope they succeed. You need to be picking the individuals that will deliver and have that potential and can really add to the company's bottom line.
Absolutely. Lina, I would love to hear your view on that.
Yeah, and it's quite similar. I'm going to build onto what Kim put together, which is creating the right opportunities for the right jobs is quite essential to get to those CEO positions, as you were alluding at the introduction. What I will probably say is that one opportunity and advantage that we have right now is that in our industry, we have more and more men and women with dual careers. And that was obviously a barrier and continue being a little bit of a barrier when you want to build an international experience. I have worked in the 5 different continents. My husband also works, and obviously creating that ability to both of us to continue with our careers and moving along is something that is quite important in those opportunities. But what I will say to those that have working spouses, dual careers, is as a couple also it's important to make choices. And sometimes my career was the leading career, sometimes my husband's career was the leading career. And it's actually okay, because we're only talking about 1 or 2 jobs that in the overall scheme of your working experience is not much, as long as you have the right opportunity and the right job. So what I will say is men and women creating opportunities, but at the same time, for those on dual careers, let's just compromise and be very clear as a family. How do you support each other?
This is very wise. I'm going to have a follow-up chat with my husband after this discussion. Gretchen, would you like to add with respect to what you heard from your co-speakers?
Yes, I agree with everything they said. And I could probably offer 2 very practical things. One is leadership projects, and the second is mentoring. And this is really something that organizations can do for how can I do mini projects? This is something you could do for yourself. Volunteer to lead small projects where you can show your leadership skills and help deliver results that benefit the organization. Volunteer for those. If you're in an organization, look at people and try and give them opportunities to lead small projects and practice their leadership skills. And that'll give you the opportunity for more and more people to rise to the top. And then I know I benefited very strongly from mentoring. And I think that trying to set up mentoring arrangements is a very positive thing for organizations to do for people within their company. I know one person that was very proactive and went out and asked a bunch of people, if I were to progress into a more strong leadership role in your department, what advice would you offer me in terms of skills and development that I would need to do in order to get those roles? And I just thought that was a really simple and proactive way for somebody to look at how they could advance their career and what they needed to develop to get further in the organization. So I think mentoring and leadership projects are 2 key ways to get more diversity.
And we're going to actually steal Kim's feedback and remark on what you said, Gretchen. That's really great point, that you don't have to wait for the opportunity, ask for it, and get also ask for feedback. And this is absolutely true, because sometimes we tend to be a little bit, we wait for the opportunity to come, but actually if we ask for it, maybe that would take us faster there. I'm going to share with you something which is, for me, I found very shocking when I heard it. But this takes me to an important question, that is the role that the perception plays in maybe promoting women to senior positions. And it was an interview with, unfortunately, a government minister from my country, where I come from, originally Lebanon. And he was asked specifically about why women don't really make it to senior leadership positions. And his answer was because women are shy and not aggressive enough. I'm not talking about an interview done 30, 40 years ago, but it was quite recently. So I want to ask you, ladies, each one of you, to what extent you think bias, lack of mentoring, Gretchen referred to that earlier, lack of sponsors play in this regard. And let me start perhaps with Janne, and then I will call each one of you to maybe comment on what you heard. Maybe you're not as shocked as I was when I heard that statement from that minister, but would love to hear your perception on the extent to which existing bias tend to be a handicap in holding back women from progressing in the industry.
You're right. I absolutely think there is bias, and I also think there have been a perception also that women need to lead in the same way as men do, and I think it's important that you can have the leadership style you want, and it's not one leadership style. I think it's in a way but still, I think there have been bias that you more or less need to have the same set of and same set of leading, and I don't think that is the case. So I think that is one of the things, and I also in a way we have seen many examples that even now, if you look going into men also, and women have a different style, and that is maybe the diversity we need in a leadership team as well, that you complement each other in a way. So, but I think these biases still exist, and we just need to overcome them. And
can we overcome existing bias?
Yes, we can. And I'm going to bring the conversation that you think of there are 3 areas that I have recommend people to do, and I have used it myself. Is the coaching, is the mentoring, and is the sponsorship to overcome obviously those biases and those barriers. But I will start with, we need to be ourselves. So be yourself and be confident and proud of who you are, because copy somebody else's style will never make you a successful person, and it will never make you a successful professional in your industry. So I have a main barrier or biases that I have myself many years in my career. So it's my accent, my English accent. I'm from South America. I'm from Colombia. I learned English when I joined BP. So for many years, I was very uncomfortable with my communication style and my heavy accent. And I was trying to sometimes be quiet, or sometimes I was trying to interrupt when I have an idea, because otherwise I will forget the exact words that I wanted to communicate. And it was through coaching, mentoring, and sponsorship, all of those 3 combined together, that I managed to overcome that fear and just accept that I have the accent that I have. I'm from Colombia. It's not going to get any better, but I have other attributes that actually are what are needed to be a successful person in the company and have a successful career. So yes, you can overcome, but be confident of yourself and use coaching, mentor, and sponsorship to help you build that confidence.
And just to build on that, Lina, very quickly, because when we talk about sponsorship and mentorship, do you recommend, for example, a young woman to go and look for those, or should the companies offer them?
I think that is a mixture. Okay, the company needs to offer, but the individual also needs to go and find. And let me tell you why. In my particular example, I have been more successful when I have chemistry with whoever is doing my mentoring and my coaching. The company also has assigned me in the past some mentors, and it's good to expand your network. But what I will probably say is that it's even better when I choose somebody that I feel comfortable being very open, very honest, to receive feedback, to provide feedback. You need that connection and that empathy. The reason why it's important that companies put that structure as well is because expand your network and opportunities to see what other options are available out of your influence area where you are known. So that's why I think it should be a mixture of both. The individual looking for, but the company also creating the framework to help you expand your network.
Thank you. Kimberly.
Yes, so I'm going to add to Lina's on the mentoring and sponsorship. I do think mentoring, you can seek out those mentors, and it is good to find someone that you can be open and relate to. It's also good to find a mentor who is very different from you that can give you coaching on how you're perceived, and you could also mentor up and help them. The sponsorship, though, and that's why I brought up earlier knowing the difference, because that to me is incumbent on the leaders in the organizations to be those sponsors. And a sponsor is a very active role. And you are looking out for opportunities for people, bringing their names in conversations, looking for those projects that can help them progress their career or close a gap. And when things pop up, I think Gretchen said those additional things that you can take on. So I think that's really important. I would also say, I'm not surprised, unfortunately, Carole, by what was said to you. But I think where we need to be more aware is when people say women aren't aggressive enough. They don't really want us aggressive. We've gotten feedback on that in the past, too. So it takes all types. And what you have to do is look out for that. Do you mean aggressive, or do you mean transparent and straightforward? And so if I want to talk about my career and I am open to a field role, I want to be a superintendent, 24-hour call, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, people may make the assumption, oh, well, Kim has a small child. She probably can't handle that, so we're not going to put her up for that job. Positive intent, but a very negative, result. So if you are open to those things and you want them, then to me, you've got to tell people, you got to be transparent. What do you want for your career? That's not aggressive. That's just career management, career development, very different. And I will tell y'all, and you've all got people like this, you'll have leaders in a room who are quiet, but yet when they speak up, you listen. Because when they say something, it matters. So quiet leaders are needed just as much as the loud ones. It all comes together. But I think right now, the leadership style that you're seeing really grow in all industries is one that, for the most part, fit women better. Empathetic, relationship building, the lack of micromanaging. I think you're seeing that come through. So I think we have a bit of an advantage here coming up this future.
I love what you said about the positive intent but negative result. I personally experienced a lot of that, ironically, during the pregnancy, where somehow there is this kind of perception that if you're pregnant, you're going to switch off completely, and who knows if you'd go back to pursuing your career. So I found people making the decisions on my behalf instead of really checking what I really wanted. So I love, definitely, I think many women out there must have experienced this kind of positive intent but negative result. Gretchen, I'd love to hear your views also on the same point that we are discussing here. And each one of the our ladies here have brought up very interesting angle. I mean, I don't know if I could sum up all this. Maybe I'm going to ask each one of you at the end to give me one takeaway, because there's a lot to digest, lots of good advice to pass on to the young women, and I would say men watching us out there. So please, Gretchen.
Yes, I agree with Kim and what she said about, I think actually women bring some very special capabilities to leadership roles that are becoming increasingly appreciated. I remember when I was at Rolls-Royce, they said that they had focused more on fellowship for systems engineering, and they were finding that women were great at looking to see if all the components added up and causing collaboration amongst the different engineering group to make sure the interfaces between components were going to actually deliver a whole system that worked effectively. And I found in my career that I think, honestly, being a woman was an advantage to me. I was often in a career where I was trying to foster collaboration, foster common purpose, and foster good communication between a lot of different parties to achieve a tangible outcome. And so I think it is a possibility that the future is going to look better and better for women in leadership roles. And I think anyone that wants to do that should follow Lina's advice and be yourself.
Gretchen, speaking of the future, I wonder whether if we meet again in 5 years' time, whether we're going to talk about the same thing, or even better, in my view, also the statistics would support what we're going to say in terms of the progress achieved in the industry. We reach the end of the session. However, before concluding, I would love to invite each one of you to give perhaps one key takeaway, one key message that you would want to pass on to our listeners, men and women alike, with respect to their future in this industry, with respect to diversity and inclusion in the oil and gas industry. Gretchen, please, I'd love to hear your takeaway and your advice to the many young, talented women and men out there listening to us today.
I always think about, if I was talking to my younger self, what would I say? And it doesn't get better for me than the advice my mom gave me, which was let your actions be guided by your dreams and not by your fears. And I have started to look at what I do when I'm afraid I'm not good enough or afraid I'm going to fail. And actually, my actions aren't as successful as when I look at what I'm doing when I'm trying to ensure lives are saved, or I'm trying to ensure everyone is heard, or I'm trying to ensure people reach their full potential, or frontline workers are supported in their important day-to-day work. So I think that's a good bit of advice. I'd say, as early as you can, notice your fears, but don't let them guide your actions. Use your dreams to guide your actions.
Very wise. I'm going to pass it on to my toddler when she listens to me more carefully. Kim.
Yeah, so for me, if you're a leader listening to this and you have teams and people you're guiding, you need to learn how to be an inclusive leader. It's critical for the success of your team. So I will start there for the leaders. If, as an individual on here, early in your career, trying to figure it out, I have the quote, and I was so glad it was kind of brought up earlier, Oscar Wilde, and it's "Be yourself, everyone else is taken." And it's on the corner of my desk, and I look at it every day. And I can't be anyone else. I can only show up at work the best Kim every day and give the best effort I can. And I would just say, in your career, just show up as the best you. Be transparent with what you want. And a mistake I made early on was I just thought I'll do really good work and things will happen. But you do need to seek out the feedback on what can you be doing, what gaps can you close, what are opportunities that can help you stand out from the crowd. So as that person, ask for the feedback. It's important.
Thank you, Kimberly. Lina.
Yes, I we'll probably follow Kim's and say, value the diversity of thinking. We are more and more global, so be open to people that think very different from you, and learn from every single opportunity you have in your career. Because when you learn and you take the best of every job opportunity you have, you will be the best. And then you can actually go back and say, probably I didn't like that job so much, but I learned so much that now is helping you in the future to be even better in every single role that you have the opportunity to do. Every job is an opportunity. So focus in being the best in the job that you are currently doing, because that will open you the next bigger opportunity.
Thank you. And last but not least, Tiana.
Yeah, I think I will actually follow up a little bit of what Gretchen said. Follow your heart, because I think if you generally are interested in something, you are normally also good in what you are doing. And I also have always had this, that I would rather regret what I did than what I didn't dare to do in a way, or was too afraid to do. So also sometimes challenge yourself to go outside your comfort zone, and also be open to change, because I think to be open to change is also a key in our industry, but in every industry. So yeah, and take the opportunities you are offered.
Lady, thank you very much for these pure gold advices, and I'm sure many people will find them very useful, not only for the oil and gas industry, actually they apply for any other sector, and also on a personal level. I could go on and on talking about, discussing your own personal experience in the industry. But I really, really hope that if we have the chance to talk about this issue again in the next few years, at least we look at the data with a big smile, that we see a big improvement at all levels, from entry to seniority to senior to CEO's level. I think the industry still has a lot to offer to young graduates from universities all around the world. Lots of opportunities out there. Look for them. And then I think oil and gas will remain the backbone of our current energy, meeting our current energy needs globally for several years to come. So I personally don't subscribe to the perception that the industry is dying. On the contrary, I think the industry is reinventing itself, and it needs all the talent that is out there, particularly women, to support this kind of reinvention, so that old and new fuels and a source of energy can live together. Thank you very much for joining us today on this special SPE Live that touches on diversity and inclusion in the oil and gas industry. I hope you enjoyed the discussion as much as I did, and I hope you join also future events organized by SPE Live. And once again, thank you to our sponsors, SPE Foundation, Chevron and Wintershall Dea. Have a nice day.